Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're listening from. Welcome to the Change Management Simplified podcast, where we will explain and discuss what change management is really about, using real examples alongside principles of change management based on our experiences on projects, transformations, change initiatives, and of course, the home experiences as well. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Change Management Simplified podcast. It's good to have you back, and I'm hoping this means that you are enjoying listening to these episodes, or maybe actually find them interesting and beneficial. And I'm hoping that you can now relate to change management being applied both at work but also at home as well. Today's episode 19. And we are focusing on the change management role versus the project manager role. This is because it's been a frustrating topic for change practitioners, but also project managers, where stakeholders confuse the two professions or the two roles. However, on this first slide, as you can see, the project manager will focus on the what and when in most cases, and then the change manager has to deal with the emotional state of the stakeholders, from people who are excited about the change, those who are not, those who are not quite too sure about it, and the ultimate goal is to get them to the end and go live and be able to hopefully utilize the tool or the processes that have been implemented. So, what do we have here? As I said, change management versus project management. We are going to cover this from with the assumption that you have come across both change management profession or role and a project management role. So I'm here to provide some clarity between what the two roles actually entail. They do use similar language or terminologies and similar type of activities, but at the end of it, it's how both of them execute them. That's where the difference is. So I'm going to cover this in 4 phases. The first phase is the activities that each team, the project management team, change management team, has to cover to be able to get through the process successfully. The first one is understanding the scope. The second one is change awareness. The third one is the gradual transition. And the fourth element, which is the end element, is the success. Both professions go about all these phases very differently. However, as we get through the episode, you will realize that it's all intertwined and they have to collaborate together where they might have both roles on the project. We are going to start with the change management role. I'm being biased as during the last 2 years, I've been closer to the change management practitioner role. But also I've had to apply project management, and maybe I think that's why sometimes my current stakeholders get confused whether I'm an accountant, a transformation manager, or a change manager, or practitioner, or project manager, program manager, because I've, I believe I've applied all 4 skill sets in the last 4 years on my current project. And it's been great. It's been exciting. It's been very challenging, but interesting. Learned a lot. So, change management. So, a change manager, I'm going to refer to a change manager or change practitioner interchangeably, but it's really referring to the same topic or to the same profession. The change practitioner will always focus on the how and why and the impact on the stakeholder. And when I say stakeholder, we do have episode 15 where we talked about what is stakeholder management. I know actually it's episode 12, where I talked about that. So I will not be going into details about that, but I'll be talking about how you work with these stakeholders, meaning the people who are impacted by the change, to be able to get them across the line and for the company to achieve its objective successfully. So the role is very much people focused, people centric. So if you are not a people person, if you do not have patience for people and change, if you do not have an agile mindset, if you do not feel that people are at the heart of the change, which sometimes drives me mad by various senior stakeholders, then you're the wrong person for this type of role. However, this is not about me convincing you to be a change manager or to be a project manager. It's all about me giving you clarity between the two because I've done in practice both of them and I do both of them. Um, the role is people focused, and what I'm going to do is use the ProSci ADCA model to help you navigate through the different activities. Now, the ProSci ADCA or ADCA model or methodology, depending on who you're talking to, really stands for raising, or the acronyms ADCA mean they 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 mean awareness, desire, you creating desire after you've created awareness, and then transferring or upskilling and getting people the knowledge they need, giving them the ability that they need to be able to utilize this change initiative or to get it across successfully. And then R is for reinforcement. So that's ADKAR. ADKAR. So, what is what is the change manager's main objective, or what is their ultimate objective? The objective is to successfully get the stakeholders to adopt to the change initiative. That is your ultimate goal as a change manager or a change practitioner. And what you do have, the challenge you have, which I would say the challenge that you have that the project manager doesn't have, is that you have to balance the company's change initiative vision, their objective, alongside the people emotional state or the impact on those people, those stakeholders. So you have to be able to navigate that bridge. I'm going to call it a bridge, but you need to be able to balance it because one, the change might result in an impact on someone's role disappearing. However, how can you entice them to create that desire to be part of that change? Because at the end of the day, you still need some of their skill set to be able um, to get them engaged and focused and be able to work with maybe the project team. Using the existing knowledge they might know about the current processes or the business. So it's important that you engage them, but also have your company's objectives and vision at heart as well. And this will help you mitigate change resistance across through the different phases, the 4 phases that I've listed. So the first activity that a change manager really has to focus on. Now, I've put this in big, bold letters: stakeholder management. You hear me say this a lot about the change manager because this role is about people, as I explained before. You need to know or you need to conduct an impact stakeholder analysis. A project manager or in the beginning, an impact assessment would have been taken high level to identify the stakeholders that have been impacted. It's now your responsibility to really understand, what does it mean? What does this analysis mean? Who's got influence? Who's got power? Who do you need to consult? Who do you need to inform? Who do you need to engage, and how you engage them? While you do that, you also have to understand the current operating model and how that's impacted. Thirdly, you need to understand the target operating model definition. So you need to understand it and be able to define it as well. By understanding the scope, the vision, and the objective, you would be able to, as well as understanding the current target operating model, you would be able to define or be in a better position to define a suitable or an appropriate or fit for purpose target operating model. Um, the other activity that the change manager would spend a little time on is the business readiness aspect. I'm not asking you to plan for it. I'm asking you to be part of the discussions with the project manager in terms of how this will be performed. For example, this could incorporate end user training. Make sure that's included within the project manager's plan. User acceptance testing, again, ensure it's included in the plan, and the stakeholders or the end users are going to actively be involved. Um, and also, the communication aspect of it, your change management communication is usually in most cases targeted because you're targeting different same message to different people, unlike the project manager's communication is usually quite generic and straightforward. So it's important that you raise awareness through these activities. If you don't do this, or if you don't encourage the the transformation lead or the project manager to incorporate these activities, you are increasing the chances of your failure in your role, because these activities allow and enable the stakeholder or the impacted people to start to gradually to learn about the system, or the process or policy that's changing. They're testing it out, touch and feel makes people start feeling a little bit comfortable. And also you're turning down the barriers of change resistance, because they're getting to see what they will be getting at the end of at the end of the project when it goes live. I'll give you an example. On a project that I worked on, it was surprising to me that they actually planned without, this is the project team, project manager, or the transformation manager, or no, not transformation, program manager, planned to do UAT within the project team. And this was shocking to me. I was like, what do you mean you're not going to do UAT? And what do you mean the end users are not going to be part of UAT? UAT being user acceptance testing. Now, that is, they're not the users. You're forgetting about the biggest stakeholder group, which is the end users. Um, so we went back and forth, and I said to them, it has to be, we have to have user acceptance testing. We have to find a way of giving the teams an opportunity to touch and feel this product before you hand it over once it's completed for them to use. One, because that wouldn't make my role any easier, and two, right now I am standing and being the voice of reason for the end users who are not part of these intense discussions. It was not a pretty discussion, but I got my point across. And at the same time, the end users' voices were also getting louder and louder. And this is because they planned this without thinking about the end user's perspective, without thinking about the transition plan, without thinking about how they needed to gradually engage the stakeholders to mitigate change resistance. That's, that is one area. So it's not always going to be a honky dory, by the way, between a project manager and a change manager or change practitioner. We sometimes come to blows. When I say blows, verbal blows, we have very intense discussion, sometimes not nice. However, I sometimes have to state it as it is when we're going wrong from a change management perspective, because at the end of the day, we need the people to do this successfully. So if the project team feel they can do everything, not my problem. My problem is the people. And that's why I have to represent the impacted end users. Um, as I said, the ultimate goal for a change manager is to enable the teams to end users to successfully adopt these new tools or processes or whatever the change initiative might be. So you have to actively, again, ensure after you've had user acceptance testing, you push for dry runs. Then after the dry runs, you want to push for parallel runs or comparatives, where the end users are running it in parallel with the project team also running their piece in the new system, alongside the old system, comparing the results, sharing knowledge to see if it's exactly what they expect. This drives more collaboration and more teamwork between the project team and the and the end users. So it's important that you push for active involvement for the end users. The second item is implementation of the target operating model, or the TOM. This is where you strategically start to put that into place, but getting the right people, the impacted people, with the TOM that was, that I mentioned at the beginning, the one that you will help define with the various senior stakeholders to ensure that those individuals are lined up to those activities, start testing them, start performing them in the dry run as well as the para run. This gives them a gradual upbuild of skill and knowledge and experience with these new tools or processes, which makes it easier for the project team to hand over when it gets to the end. Secondly, ensure that you also clearly define roles and responsibilities. And here you have an opportunity to revise them where it's not fit for purpose in actual practice, because remember, you defined them earlier in the process. Um, Also, ensure that the race is clear: who's responsible, who's accountable, who needs to be consulted, and who needs to be informed as part of all these different activities. Also, build an SME network or champions so that when the project team rolls off, you have these individuals plotted within the business teams, and therefore, if any queries come up from the end users, these individuals can easily pick up on questions or be point of contact for any ad hoc questions. And this will get you to the very end around success, number 4, which is realization of the benefits. For a change manager, adoption of the project or the tool is not the end of your success that you need to achieve. You need to take it beyond realizing those benefits. And those benefits don't usually start to come in towards the very back end of the project if it's been completed on time. Um, or in most cases, it will end, realization of benefits will usually come in after the first or the second quarter after go live. So that's where you will start to realize those benefits and be able to measure them and share this success with the executive committee and the organization as a whole. It will also help you to review or relook at your TOM to see whether it's sustainable. And also these SME champions will be a benefit to everybody across the organization. So that's the change manager role and how they do things. Now, the project manager, as you see, they're very delivery focused. They need to get things to the line. So for them, it's very much about the tasks that need to be completed. Have they been completed as planned, on time and budget? That's where the main focus is. So in the beginning, it's about agreeing scope, the duration and the budget, as well as getting the right skill set on the project to be able to start working on it. And then thirdly, uh, again, the impacted stakeholders will be defined at a high level, but then the change manager, as I mentioned before, will take it an extra step um, above that. Then the change awareness aspect comes in, or phase, for the project manager when it comes to project execution, because you are focusing on the project tasks, tracking them and monitoring them. And also when you see, I know I haven't mentioned about stakeholder management here yet, but you will be working with various stakeholders depending on how big the program is. And therefore it's important that you have stakeholder management skill set. You won't require it to the extent of the change manager, but you need to have that soft skill. It's important because you need to speak to the different to different work stream leads or the function leads who are impacted, to be able to scope out the requirements appropriately and to be able to engage them and to keep them focused. Monitoring of issues and risk and dependencies, and then also how you communicate is usually via progress updates, which is usually very generic, but it has to be precise, clear, so that everybody understands it without having to be involved in the detail of the project. Project implementation is the phase that I would say the project manager gets involved in for gradual transition. Now, through here again, the project now the project managers don't usually think about transition until after they have to hand it over to the project, to the end user team or to the BAU team. That's way too late. So here, this is where the project and the change manager comes in and drives this proactive involvement of the stakeholders, impacted stakeholders, via the business readiness phase through the change awareness, number two, as I mentioned, and into adoption. So the project manager will focus on scheduling the UAT, the dry run and the power runs, and it's the change manager to make sure that the right individuals are identified and engaged and participating in those activities. In addition to that, the project manager will document lessons learned and from all these different activities, user business readiness activities, and then ensure that where possible all fixes are made to where deficiencies or where processes or configuration didn't work properly, and also any improvements that need to be implemented prior to go live to help with the success of the go live output. And the number four for success as a project manager is project completion. For them, when they get to the end, and as I mentioned at the top, the project's been completed on time, as per scope, as per budget, um, then they're almost, I would say, 90% there. Now, the biggest challenge that the project managers will have is getting sign off from the BAU and doing the handover. Now, this is where the project manager recognizes the effort and the work that the change manager has been doing all through the duration of the project. And that's because signing off, the BAU team signing off and taking the handover from the project team is the toughest activity or task that you will have at the end as one, the transformation lead or the sponsor and the project manager, because they are not going to sign off anything that they feel is not fit for purpose. So if you haven't engaged them prior, in the prior phases of understanding the scope, change awareness, gradual transition, you will not be successful if they do not sign off. And this is where most projects get stuck and stop and never finish. And this is where the research shows that 75% of the projects end up not finishing or failing because of lack of change management involvement. And therefore, as conclusion, for the project to be successful, it's important that both the change management role and the project manager role are incorporated on the program, on the change initiative, because they're both important, crucial, and bring different skill set and abilities and capabilities to the program. And therefore, where you might not have it because of one, the project is too small, so you don't need two full-time people, that's okay. If in a smaller project, you could potentially source a skill set or someone who has both. Not many of us are out there who can do both, but if you can find one, do get one and do pay a reasonable price for them. Having two skill set, it's not an easy thing because you gotta deal with the people and you gotta deal with the project deliverables, and it's not fair that you don't pay enough to cater for both, expectations. However, that's my small vent. Ultimately, going back to what we're actually here for, is that you now get an understanding of what these two roles are, and you don't confuse them when you come across these individuals, because they both projects or both roles, people the individuals conducting these activities do get frustrated when their sponsor asks them to for example, maybe a project manager to do change management and the change manager to do project management. They're two different skill sets and they require two different certifications, qualifications. I happen to have both. um, and I'm able to do both, and I'm lucky enough that I can juggle both skill sets whenever, as and when I want to or when I need to, depending on the phase of the project. And on that note, I hope this has been helpful. And I'm hoping that you are now clear between the difference between a change manager and a project manager. In a nutshell, they all go through the same phases. Understanding the scope, number one, two, change awareness, number three, gradual transition, and number four, success. The difference is how they go about those different activities. Um, and at the end of it, they're all aiming towards the same objective and they have to work together, but they need to get the equal respect. Do not think change managers are just there to be as tree huggers to make everybody feel better. No. Sometimes you are caught in the middle between business needs and the people needs, and you have to get the right balance. And mentally can be draining. It's a very mentally draining profession because every single person who's got a complaint about the project or what's not going well or that individual is not working appropriately or they've been shouted at or they're not clear about what they're doing, the first person they go to is the change manager, because there's that trust that you're changing, you're not going to, you have to listen to me basically, and I do have to listen to them, and I have to critically think about what they're saying. Through the vent that might be for 10 minutes, there's probably 2 minutes out of that conversation or that vent that is actually telling me what the root cause of that problem. And it's me to try and find a solution to that to mitigate resistance down the line, and therefore also making life a bit easier for the project manager. And on that note, thank you for listening. Hope this has been useful. And yet again, please like, please subscribe, please share. Thank you. See you next week. If you find this podcast beneficial or interesting, please press follow, like, or subscribe. Lastly, and of course, don't forget to spread the word by sharing. Thank you for listening.